You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, a possible extension to get Americans and U.S. allies out of Afghanistan. We'll have the latest.
So it begins. It's going to be a week of almost record-breaking heat. We've got your latest advisories from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, more pickle puns than you ever wanted to hear as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania transforms into Picklesburg over the weekend. All that and more coming up.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. President Biden says discussions are underway among military officials about potentially extending the evacuation of Americans and Afghan allies out of Kabul beyond his August 31st deadline. President Biden says since August 14th, 28,000 people have been evacuated in the airlift, but tens of thousands remain stranded in Afghanistan. Well, following the news of the Taliban's takeover, many veterans are struggling to process how the situation played out. So the veterans of foreign wars in La Harpe, Kansas, hosted an informal session for those who fought in Afghanistan and for other veterans. The session gave veterans an opportunity to share their thoughts and grievances in a supportive and confidential space.
We're angry, and some people have to get it off their chest. And if you are a veteran and you're out in the community and you want to say something, they're a little afraid to do so. So what we did is we brought it into our organization.
Vietnam veterans were in attendance as well to help Afghanistan veterans process their thoughts on the situation. An officer-involved shooting last Friday takes a fatal turn over the weekend. KBI officials say 28-year-old Brandon Schlichten passed away early Sunday morning at a Kansas City hospital. The incident started Friday when Chinook police responded to reports of a suspicious person looking in car windows. According to the police, when an officer arrived, he attempted to make contact with Schlichten, who then pulled a weapon from a holster. The officer fired one shot, striking Schlichten in the head. The investigation is still ongoing. Police in Seneca, Missouri investigate a vehicle wreck at Big Daddy's gas station. An officer on the scene says a car drove through the gas station and liquor store's front door late Sunday morning. He says a 61-year-old male driver was trying to exit the store's parking lot when something went wrong and the car crashed through the store. Driver error is suspected, but the officer says there was no indication that the driver was intoxicated. No one was injured during the crash, and as of now, the driver is not facing any criminal charges. Well, the weather has been and is still good for many improvement projects that involve hiring a contractor. The Better Business Bureau says there are several contractors who may advertise on the TV or the radio, are verified and have a license, but they could still end up in some way shortchanging the customer. The BBB says it's always a good idea to visit their website and check out businesses. Also, always ask for references.
If you've asked for references and they're not able to provide any, or if you find out the references are like family, that should be something that you might want to think twice about. If people are being really, really pushy and wanting for you to re-sign a contract after you've already signed one, that's a huge red flag.
You can always check out the bbb.org website for more information. For the second year in a row, the Neosho River Nap-In played out in Chautauqua, Kansas. The event brings together nappers from across the region to showcase their wares. In this case, homemade arrowheads, knives, spears, and other things made by hand from rocks, just like in the old days. Aaron Ellison, who put it all together, says it's important to him to bring his love of napping to Southeast Kansas.
When I got introduced to napping, the first place I made my first arrowhead was right here. And then they told me about what was called a nap-in, where people around the area get together, camp together, break rock together, trade stories, arrowheads, all sorts of stuff. And I thought, you know what? I want to go to a nap-in, but they're all so far away. Okay, I'm gonna make one here.
Well, it's the time of year when pickled products prove particularly popular in Pittsburgh. There's your peas tongue twister for you. Friday, the Andy Warhol Bridge transformed into Picklesburg for the Steel City's 6th Pickle Festival. Americans consume 26 billion pickles a year, which equals 9 pounds of pickles per person. But nowhere are they more relished than in Pittsburgh, hometown of Heinz, which marketed the first ever sweet pickles back in 1876. Last year's celebration had to be canned because of COVID. But this weekend, the celebration was back, and it really was a big deal. The highlight is the pickle juice chugging contest. But there's plenty to savor outside the competition through the weekend, with one-of-a-kind concoctions like the fried pickle stickle.
Yeah, it's fried pickle on the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a Texas State Fair, honestly. Pickle juice.
Chugging.
Number one, hiccups. And number two, yeah, if you ever develop like working outside or something like that, or the reason I picked this up was from batting practice, soak your hands in pickle rind.
I know that I've helped out with the Century Ride participants. We always have pickle juice for the riders so they can drink pickle juice on their route, eat lots of pickles.
Yeah, I don't mind pickle juice at all. High temperatures for our past 10 days. You'll notice very seasonable, really, if you date back to all the way to last Saturday. August average high, just about 89.5 degrees. Yeah, yesterday, you're like, we got up to 94. That 94, that's going to be at the low end of the roller coaster here by the time the end of August is over and we update the old 10-day rolling forecast. All right, here's what we've got over 7th and Rangeline. Now, even though we're going to talk a whole lot about heat, it is absolutely gorgeous on this Monday morning. We currently sit at 78 degrees. Look at that. We already have a little heat index / feels like in effect. 2-degree difference as that humidity sits at 79%. Of course, the blue and the green, that's from the sweeping radar. We really have a high pressure hanging over us. We're seeing a little bit of a fall off toward I-70, that one that was up by the Nebraska-Kansas state line, but it won't be enough to get to us. We're going to be consumed with heat advisories, and check out that expiration time. That lasts all the way until Thursday evening. So today begins a string of temperatures unlike from what we've seen dating back to the end of July. We were able to roll 97s consecutively on August the 10th and 11th, but we're going to take, instead of 2 days, we're going to take about 4 straight days of 96, 97s this week. Kind of waiting on the race to 80 is what we've been calling it, as Carthage and Joplin as well as Chanute sit at 78. We'll go 76 in Fort Scott and Nevada. It's been rather comfortable down in Miami, where it sits at 72. Easy to see the definitive line of the hot temperatures that begin really about central Nebraska and press down to the deep southeastern portion of the United States. As far as the thunderstorm risk map, everything stays upper plains today. I'm not going to be surprised here if by the time we don't get into the afternoon, though, that we don't see some of that lasting from Nebraska up through the Dakotas actually turn yellow and end up in the low category, as they got a distinct chance for some hail to be comboed with that as well. We're going to have plenty of sunshine. We're not even going to have any of those afternoon and evening pop-ups that we've had last week. So all the clouds clear out to the east. It's a scorcher. Get ready to re-rack it on Tuesday, because each and every day this week we're going to be throwing up high 90s. And remember, it's going to be a whole lot of water, whole lot of sunscreen. Try to take frequent breaks when you're outside for prolonged periods of time.
All right. Just be safe out there, that's for sure. Well, Freeman Hospital says it's ready to start giving third booster shots. That story coming up. And while both Baxter and Colgan head into fall football with a small number of seniors, both teams are ready for a big season. And why eating just one hot dog may be bad for your health. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
The football season.
Freeman Hospital says it is ready to administer the COVID-19 vaccine booster shots to those who qualify. KOAM's Mike Mahoney spoke to hospital officials as well as a Joplin resident who is eligible for her third shot.
COVID-19 booster shots are now available at Joplin's Freeman Hospital and many other locations, but only for patients meeting certain medical criteria.
Those patients who have severe or untreated HIV infection would qualify. Those that are actively receiving cancer treatments would qualify. Those that are severely immunocompromised and have some autoimmune disease, they would also qualify.
The CDC says that starting September 20th, members of the general public who received a Moderna or Pfizer coronavirus vaccine can receive a corresponding booster shot, as long as it happens at least 8 months from their second dose. Freeman Hospital has the Pfizer vaccines, but pharmacies like Stone's Corner in Webb City have both.
We've been able to start those booster doses, and they just need to be 28 days past their second dose for those that are eligible, and we'd be happy to help.
Natalie Mast is an immunocompromised Joplin resident who is especially vulnerable to the coronavirus. She's eager to get a booster shot and hopes all who are eligible will do the same.
The more we let this go, the more it's going to become more resistant to antibodies, either from natural infection or from vaccines. That's going to make it much harder for people like me to fight it off should we get breakthrough infections or should we get a severe infection.
In Joplin, Mike Mahoney, KOAM News.
Now, Freeman says the booster shots will be offered free of charge. Americans who've received the Johnson & Johnson single-dose COVID-19 vaccine may have to wait weeks to find out if they should need a booster shot. The Biden administration is now gathering data it will use to make that determination. Almost 14 million Americans received the Johnson & Johnson inoculation. Health officials have not yet decided whether Americans who got the J&J shot should receive a second round of that vaccine or switch to an additional shot of one of the other two approved vaccines. Some scientists say eating even just one hot dog might not be a good idea. Researchers at the University of Michigan, working on food and life expectancy, worked to create a health nutritional index and have now calculated foods that are net beneficial or net detrimental to your health in minutes. 5,800 foods were ranked on the nutritional disease burden and environmental impact. So eating a hot dog costs your healthy life 36 minutes. On the other hand, eating cashews may lengthen it by 26 minutes. The study was published in Nature Food. All right, so if you eat a hot dog,
so why don't I just eat a hot dog and then 2 packs of cashews?
That's what I was
Boom.
thinking. For every, hey, it sounds
Net
like
gain.
a trip to the ballpark, Michael.
There you go, net gain. I just figured it out. We just have 5,800 foods?
Somebody has too much time on
No,
that.
it was you took the words right
Seriously.
out of my mouth right there.
Too
Our
much.
daily almanac for this August the 23rd. We're going to skirt with some records, but we're not going to get up to 102 like we did in 1947. I don't think we're actually going to break any records this week, but I tell you what, sun already blaring down right there outside of Television City. There we are. It's a quiet 7th and Rangeline. Thought maybe we'd see a school bus or two running around town here on this August the 23rd. 78 degrees is where we stand. Feels like it's 80 already. Don't worry about any precipitation. That's off the sweeping radar. We remain clear, just some light cloud cover with heat advisory stretching all the way into Thursday. Nobody at the 80-degree mark yet. We range from low to high 70s, anywhere from about 72 to 78. With the heat over the Midwest, tracking all the way down to the Gulf. Right-hand side of your screen, they still have flooding concerns from Henri, now a post-tropical low-pressure system. But while we're only in the H's in the Atlantic, check it out in the Pacific. They're already on the letter M. I got a feeling we're going to pick up, tropically speaking, here in the next month as far as the Atlantic goes. Weather trend here in the 4 states, high 90s today. And the future track clears out the cloud cover. And we don't even really have any afternoon or evening pop-ups that want to emerge. Get ready for a hot week. 96s and 97s all the way until that heat advisory is lifted on Thursday. We'll be back. A little high school football preview next. Baxter Springs Lions getting ready to start their second week of fall football practice. After back-to-back winless years, new head coach Russell Burr and his team hopeful to turn this program around. Now, the Lions do face some challenges again this year. Just one senior on the roster and battling some low numbers. However, off-season preparations have shown promise, and the Lions determined to rewrite this story.
Good. We don't have a lot of numbers, but our kids are working pretty hard. And we got some athletes. It's just a matter of can we go the full game, because we just don't have a lot of guys. The first win for us will be huge. We are on a streak right now. We haven't won in a couple of years, actually. So our first win will be a time of celebration.
St. Mary's Colgan also kicking off week 2 of practice as the Panthers return a small senior class, but it's a highly motivated group. KOAM Sports Director Jacob Leonard with more on how those seniors aim to lead their team on another postseason run.
The seniors on this Colgan roster have been waiting for this season for a long time.
A lot of them had older siblings, older brothers that played here and went to school here, and so they've been around and they know what it takes and they know what their siblings and parents have put into making this place what it is, and so they're excited for their opportunity, knowing that they're up next.
There's even more motivation for a few of them who have missed time to injury in high school, including Jalen Van Beesler, who played in just 4 games after an early season injury in 2020.
I really felt like when he came back, he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and we've certainly seen that this summer and so far. And he's gotten a lot stronger in the weight room, really moving well, looks good.
I'm just thankful that I can play right now. I missed a lot last year, and I'm just really ready to go. Just really motivated to go out and get wins for the team.
Aiden Fleming's another senior that had an unfortunate injury as a sophomore and missed some time, and had a great year last year, and we're confidence primed for another big year this year. And then Will Glover, missed a game or two here last year and some time as a sophomore, and I think they've learned how important each day is, and they're hungry to make the most of their senior years.
Colgan opens with 3 tough games against Girard, Galena, and Frontenac. They're hoping those early season games will have them ready for district play and another run in the postseason.
It's a competitive district and it's a challenging district, but one that we feel good about, like we can go in and compete with every team every given week.
I just think a lot of people outside of us don't think we'll be very good, and we don't get very good ratings the past couple of years, but I think we'll push past that and do better than people think.
In Pittsburgh, Jacob Leonard, KOAM Sports.
Colgan opens up its season with the traditional Girard opener on September the 3rd. Chiefs traveled to Arizona to face the Cardinals in the second week of preseason action, beat them 17-10. Chiefs now 2-0 on preseason play so far. Patrick Mahomes played for about 2 quarters, completed 10 of 18 passes, 78 yards. Backup Chad Henne, he came in, he hit Mecole Hardman for a 17-yard touchdown. Then Shane Buechele, he found Jerick McKinnon in the end zone for the second Chiefs touchdown. Here's what Mahomes had to say about the second preseason win.
I think the most valuable thing we did was kind of have those long, sustained drives. I mean, it's awesome to score with one play, and I'm sure we'll have a couple of those during the season. But to have those drives where you have to kind of grind it out, I think that's the biggest thing that you get away from this game. Definitely a good showing for the offensive line, I thought. They protected well. We ran the ball well, and you can always learn from the things that we did.
Chiefs have their final preseason contest. That's going to be at home against the Vikings this Friday. We'll be right back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 when we return.
It's time to honor today's 4-state hero, Sergeant Evan Parker in the U.S. Army. The soldier from South Haven, Kansas, served tours in both Hawaii and in Iraq. From 2004 to 2005, he earned a number of honors, including 2 Purple Hearts, the Army Commendation Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, and the Hawaii Medal of Valor. To Sergeant Evan Parker, we thank you, our 4-state hero. Well, a woman in Wisconsin is alive thanks to the actions of her 5-year-old daughter. Fox News' Christina Van Zelst explains what happened.
Curiosity leads life, but for Adeline,
I said, hurry up, get home.
Her bravery is what saved her mom's.
That she was having a blockage and a possible stroke.
Chelsea Shimoleski was suffering from a stroke while her husband was at work. Her daughter, who doesn't know how to read or write, did know something was wrong.
I called Dad, and I knew how to call him because of the emojis.
She went ahead and kept calling, and finally he said something's wrong, and she's calling back to back. He listened to the voicemail she had left, and he immediately came home and then called 911.
It's because of Adeline's heroic actions her mom is standing today.
I'm forever grateful and extremely, as her mother, I'm very proud of her.
The Hartford family meeting the EMS workers who responded to the call. After a tour of the fire station, it was a meeting of all kinds of heroes.
And it just means that what we do and the message that we try and get out for early notification for young children is working.
Chelsea is on the road to recovery, but she hopes by sharing her story that parents will take the time to sit down with their kids and talk about what to do in case of an emergency.
Half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, tips to help you decide when to wait and when to go to the ER. And Elon Musk says Tesla is creating a humanoid robot. We'll take a look. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
State's most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:30. Let's take a look at today's top stories. A Delaware County woman gets a 20-year sentence for recording the drug overdose death of another woman. Allie Anderson, charged with first-degree murder in the victim's death, will serve less than 3 years of her 20-year sentence. The judge suspended 17 years of her sentence, then gave her credit for time served. Anderson and her husband Brian Anderson were arrested in 2019 for Melissa Vermillion's death. Police say they injected Vermillion with methamphetamine, recorded her while she overdosed, and ignored her calls for help as she was dying. Brian Anderson died in jail last year. One man is dead following a two-vehicle crash in Bourbon County over the weekend. According to the Kansas Highway Patrol, 48-year-old Ira Toshevic was riding his motorcycle on Highway 69 near National Avenue in Fort Scott when he was unable to negotiate a right-hand curve and went left of the center, hitting another vehicle head-on. Toshevic was taken to Ascension Via Christi in Fort Scott, where he later died. The driver of the other vehicle refused treatment at the scene. President Biden says discussions are underway among military officials about potentially extending the evacuation of Americans and Afghan allies out of Kabul beyond his August 31st deadline. President Biden says since August 14th, 28,000 people have been evacuated in the airlift, but tens of thousands remain stranded in Afghanistan. Following the news of the Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan, many veterans are struggling to process how the situation played out. So the Veterans of Foreign Wars in La Harpe, Kansas, hosted an informal session for those who fought in Afghanistan and other veterans. The session gave veterans an opportunity to share their thoughts and grievances in a supportive and confidential space.
We're angry, and some people have to get it off their chest. And if you are a veteran and you're out in the community and you want to say something, they're a little afraid to do so. So what we did is we brought it into our organization.
Vietnam veterans were in attendance as well to help Afghanistan veterans process their thoughts on the situation.
Interesting those two veterans able to come together, because I did hear even people that were part of the Vietnam War say that the scene when the Taliban conquered Kabul and they looked at the airport, that it was reminiscent of them of the fall of Saigon in 1975. So it's glad to see that they could come together and offer each other support there. Live look over a quiet 7th and Rangeline. Get to see these school buses out and about. We haven't seen them live. I mean, I've seen a couple roll by, definitely. 78 degrees is where we stand right now. Already a warm one. I don't call it a hot one. It'll going to be hot later on, though. No worries. That's just the sweeping radar. Here's what we're going to concentrate on. The heat advisories lasting all the way into Thursday and stretching from the Missouri-Iowa state line all the way down to the Gulf Coast, as we currently have a whole bunch of mid to high 70s. We still got some 72s there in Miami and in Grove. Carthage is 78. Chanute at 78 as well, with the heat wave kind of splitting Nebraska in half and then diving down to the south and southeastern portion. Look at all the thunderstorm activity they have right off the mid-Atlantic coast. And of course, as far as the thunderstorm risk goes, keep that up to the upper plains, but we still have the potential for flooding in the northeastern section of the United States as the remnants of Henri continue to push off toward the Atlantic, but it's going to be sticking around for another day and a half. Here in the 4 states, we'll go high 90s and a little southerly breeze, 10 to 15 miles per hour. It's going to feel about like 103 this afternoon. We're going to rinse and repeat for Tuesday. Be right back up there into the high 90s. And that's why those alert days stick around all the way into Thursday. Really don't have the shot for much of a rain chance. Last week where we were getting the afternoon and evening pop-up thunderstorms, not so much. This is just going to be dry and hot. Be back with more KOAM Morning News. Our Insta poll coming at you right after this. COVID-19, the subject of this morning's KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll. A tsunami of patients. Well, that's at least how one doctor described the rush of people coming into his downtown Atlanta, Georgia ER during the current COVID-19 surge. This is a problem frontline healthcare workers are seeing across the entire United States. So to help with overcrowding, doctors trying to get out the word about when to go to the emergency room and when to stay home and call your doctor. Here's Mandy Gaither.
Busting at the seams, hospitals across the U.S.
It's not a pleasant thing as a medical care provider to have to put patients in a tent.
From Mississippi to Texas, a surge in patients as COVID-19 cases continue to climb, driven by the Delta variant.
Our emergency room, like so many, are overrun right now.
In Georgia, the emergency department at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta is not only dealing with COVID-19, but patients with other respiratory viruses as well. To help with overcrowding, doctors say know when to go to the ER, get emergency help if the patient has trouble breathing, difficulty keeping down fluids, changes in alertness or unusual trouble waking up, bluish lips or face, or persistent chest pain or pressure. However, they say stay home and get in touch with a doctor for a low-grade fever, fatigue, cough, congestion, or sore throat.
We've worked to manage the volumes, but a continued rise in numbers will continue to push our capabilities.
Frontline healthcare workers across the U.S. continue to urge vaccination, saying it's the best way to lower risk of hospitalization and death.
I watched a 28-year-old previously healthy unvaccinated patient die from COVID complications. And while we value every life, that one was tough because it could have been prevented.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Like I said, this is across the entire United States. You've got health officials in southern Oregon saying due to an influx of new COVID-19 cases, patients are being treated in hallways. They just do not have enough space. Now, anxiety over the coronavirus has hit a new high since last winter. The latest Associated Press and National Opinion Research Center poll says 41% of Americans are either extremely or very worried about themselves or family becoming infected with coronavirus. That's up some 21 percentage points since June and very close to last January when 43% said they were in that extremely or very worried category. And despite these rising cases and concerns, polls suggest Americans have not stepped up precautionary measures. So our question to you, how anxious are you about yourself or your family becoming infected with coronavirus? And right now, 44% say yes, extremely or very worried. That's somewhat led the poll all morning long. We've seen a huge jump in the number that say not worried. This actually started out at about 11%. We've seen that increase to 37%. And now in third place, 19% of you say somewhat worried. Appreciate everybody's engagement this morning. You can take part each and every morning. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. or connect to us via our KOAM News Now Facebook page. Be back with Consumer Watch next.
In Consumer Watch this morning, ghost kitchens, which became popular during the coronavirus pandemic, are quickly growing as a way to combat price inflation and rising food costs. Lydia Hugh checks one out.
We're outside of Umami Burger at New York City's Brookfield Place, where just at the counter they're serving burgers and fries and milkshakes. But back in the kitchen, behind the scenes, they're cooking fried chicken for delivery only under several ghost kitchen brands like Sam's Crispy Chicken and The Other Side. To get insight into the business operations here, we have Chef Vincenzo Rossi. Chef Rossi, you say the ghost kitchens help this restaurant location by adding about 20 to 30% of revenue to the operation here. How do the ghost kitchens, or do the ghost kitchens, offset rising costs of food?
Well, with the rising cost of food, the rising cost in labor and real estate, we've found a way that layering in these brands offers additional revenue streams. So what we're going to be actually doing here is actually adding 2 more brands, Crispy Rice and Kumi, which are another 2 ghost kitchens, and operating 7 brands out of this one space.
So tell us a little bit more about how that helps mitigate the cost of food. Are you able to use food more efficiently across the menus? How does that actually work?
So in adding these brands, what we're doing is we're cross-utilizing ingredients. So a lot of these brands can basically use a lot of the same ingredients, and we're creating multiple brands off of that. And not only that, but I think we're also looking at it from a purchasing aspect, right? We're now purchasing a lot more because we have more revenue stream coming in, and so we're able to get better costs on our end when we're dealing with the supply chain.
Your company behind this operation is called C3. And there are 250 kitchens across the country right now, plans to expand. What do you think moving forward, dining looks like? Is this the future of dining, more ghost kitchens where you don't actually sit down in the restaurant where your food is coming from?
Well, we're creating culinary communities. That's the biggest thing, C3. And I think with that, what we're trying to do is not only offer brands that resonate with people, but we also want to we have these great partnerships with these wonderful chefs, Dario Cecchini, world's greatest butcher, Katsuya, we have Chef Morimoto, Iron Chef, right? And he's creating brands with us so that we can then offer that to the people. And not only that, but have a brick and mortar, but then also create in our other locations, whether it's an Umami Burger or an El Mia, and have those brands operating out of the back and still doing delivery so that we have that. It's kind of like this phone to table, and it's resonating with that Gen X, that Gen Z, and getting those things for them.
Well, certainly an idea that is catching a lot of attention. We know that there's been significant growth in food delivery during the pandemic, and now we're seeing some really big companies entering that market. Companies like Kroger and Five Guys both announcing plans to open ghost kitchens through the end of the year. Wendy's, on their most recent earnings call, also said they're going to open about 50 ghost kitchens for delivery-only operations by the end of the year. Each one of those, they say, could earn up to $1 million each. Reporting from Manhattan, New York, Lydia Hu for Fox Business.
Well, Halloween is just around the corner, and that means it's candy season. Hershey is joining in on the fun, releasing new products just in time for the holiday. Among their offerings include strawberry-flavored Kisses, marshmallow-flavored Kit Kats, cookies and cream chocolates with fangs on them, and Reese's snacks shaped as pumpkins or with green cream on the bottom. If all of those sound good, the company is also selling a variety pack. I like the Franken Cup. Well, Oreo is releasing apple cider donut flavored cookies. And these feature apple cider flavored cream sandwiched between 2 golden cookies. These limited edition cookies are out now and will surely get you in the mood for sweater weather. I'm ready for it anyway. Well, Elon Musk says Tesla is creating a humanoid robot. He says it'll have a screen where a person's face would be, and it'll perform boring, repetitive, and dangerous work. Musk says a prototype could be available next year. Well, if you've been waiting and waiting for the right time to buy a new Tesla car, well, you're probably going to have to wait even longer. Estimated delivery times on Tesla's website for most models have been pushed back until later this year, and in some cases, next year. The only exceptions are the upper-end versions of the Model 3 sedan and the Model Y SUV. Mike Richards will no longer be a host of Jeopardy! Richards announced yesterday he was stepping down, saying, quote, "I was deeply honored to be asked to host the syndicated show and was thrilled by the opportunity to expand my role. However, over the last several days, it has become clear that moving forward as host would be too much of a distraction for our fans and not the right move for the show. As such, I will be stepping down as host effective immediately." Richards said a search for a new host will begin immediately. Guest host will return for the new season. The change-up comes 2 days after the website The Ringer published old comments made by Richards, where he made derogatory statements about women. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
Puzzles. Missouri high school football kicks off this Friday. But actually, for some 4-state high schoolers in southwest Missouri, guess what? Their season has already started.
These are the Cornerstone Spartans, an 8-man football team made up of mostly homeschooled athletes.
You know, I'd have missed out on the opportunity to play the great sport of football, but, you know, because this team exists, I'm really lucky and I get to play.
It still gives me an opportunity to be able to get some college attention, possibly be able to go to a college to play football. When I was homeschooled, that was one of the things that I was nervous about, not having a team to play for, and now I do. I'm pretty happy about it.
The program began around 2008.
They were started by a guy who he homeschooled his kids, and they had nowhere to play once they finished JYFA, so we started this team.
In the 2020 season, the Spartans went winless.
Well, most of our players are returning players, and they're mad from last year. They're like, all right, we got to get a win. No more years like last year.
The Spartans play an 11-game schedule. Saturday was their home opener.
I've been waiting 9 months for this game because we didn't win a single game last year, and I wanted to come out and get some redemption.
Redemption is what they got. The Spartans defeated Northwest Arkansas 46-0.
It feels great to get, our first win in over 650 days. It's good to get a win. That way these boys know what it feels like to win. That way they can keep pursuing this, winning mentality.
Winning the championship is, of course, the goal. But it's more than just that.
I want to make sure all these boys, come through the program and get through, and they get this high school football experience.
That was our own Danny Terza reporting. Congratulations to Coach Pullum and the entire Cornerstone team. Now, the Spartans also welcome players that attend private and public high schools, but don't necessarily play for their school team. Tell you what, it's going to be a hot one by the time everybody kicks off this coming Friday, and we're going to begin our heat wave in earnest today. Now, yesterday we got up to 94 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. Today we're going to cruise past that mark, but stop short of our record from 1947, where we got up to 102 degrees. There we are outside of Television City, and beautiful blue skies over 7th and Rangeline, where the temperature right now sits at 78 degrees. High humidity sitting at 79%. That can be deceiving. Let's remove the sweeping radar. All clean throughout the 4 states, minus the fact that we've got a little color code there with our heat advisories lasting all the way into Thursday and stretching from the Iowa-Missouri state line all the way down to the Gulf. Temperatures already ranging from the mid-70s. We've seen Miami and Grove now bump up to 74. We've got Lamar and Carthage at 78, along with Chanute, trying to see who the first one to 80 is as this heat wave's going to stretch really from about the middle of Nebraska down to the mid-Atlantic. And severe thunderstorm risk map, it is expanding a little bit as far as that marginal area, but we do keep it in the upper plains for today. Speaking of severe weather, Henri, now the remnants of it, still a low pressure system, but dangerous flooding concerns persist throughout the northeastern and New England coasts. Weather trend here in the 4 states, high 90s, and lose that ability to grab some cloud cover and some pop-ups that actually were kind of helping us out temperature-wise last week. It's a 7-day forecast that ranges high 90s pretty much through the entire week, feeling about like 103 each afternoon. We'll be back, wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. President Biden says discussions are underway among military officials about potentially extending the evacuation of Americans and Afghan allies out of Kabul beyond his August 31st deadline. The president says since August 14th, 28,000 people have been evacuated in the airlift, but tens of thousands remain stranded in Afghanistan. In Tennessee, record-breaking flash floods left at least 22 people dead. And rescue crews are still searching for many missing people. The flooding in rural areas over the weekend washed out roads, disabled cell phone towers, and phone lines. And Henri continues to dump heavy rain and threaten storm surge in parts of New England. From Massachusetts to New York and New Jersey, Henri flooded streets and homes and toppled trees and power lines. It made landfall Sunday in Rhode Island as a tropical storm. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
It's going to be a hot one up into the high 90s, not only for today, but all the way through the 7-day forecast with heat index readings feeling about like 103 each and every afternoon. I guess you could say Friday we get a break, but even headed into the weekend, 90s still throwing up there from 93 to 91.
All right, well, check out the joy on Pope Francis's face as he enjoys his latest gift. Yeah, that's what you think it is. An Italian nonprofit group founded to promote table soccer gave the Pope his very own game. Now, most people, we know it as foosball, and have given the rows of molded soccer players a spin or two. Sport Toscana Calcioballia, or something like that, views foosball as an inclusive sport that can be played by people of all ages and physical ability. The group says it wanted to give the Pope an inclusive gift that people with disabilities can also enjoy. Hailing from Argentina, Pope Francis is a well-known soccer fan. He's been given personalized jerseys and even hosted players at the Vatican.
You play the Pope in foosball, you got to let him win, right?
Depends what your goal is.
I think I'd go ahead and let him win. Thank you all for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
With Long John Silver.